Thanks, David. Our second reader tonight, Nancy O. Greene. You're back there, aren't you, Nancy? Okay, started writing at the age of 9. Her short story collection, Portraits in the Dark, received a brief mention in the year's Best Fantasy and Horror 2007. Other works by Nancy have appeared or will appear in fearnet.com, CHIZINE, LOVECRAFT EZINE, Cemetery Dance, Haunted, 11 Tales of Ghostly Horror, Shroud Publishing's The Terror at Miskatonic Falls, Dark Recesses, Flames Rising, and Smile Hun, You're in Baltimore, and others. She has a BA in Cinematic Arts and a minor in English from the University of Southern California. Please welcome Nancy O. Greene.
Hi, how are you? Okay, well, I didn't really plan anything to read. I'd started to write a few things and I discarded them. I don't really do a lot of nonfiction. I do mostly fiction work, as you could hear from my bio. So I was struggling with what to talk about today, and I thought I would just talk about I guess something, it's not too personal, but it is kind of personal for me, and you know, people have their opinions and whatnot, but I'm basically going through the process right now to become Catholic. Let's see if I can I move this?
I can move that out of the way.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Dick.
Basically, when I was a little kid, or well, a teenager, I had decided that I wasn't going to be a part of any religion whatsoever. Sorry for the paint here. I was painting the other day. And you know, that worked well for me for a few years. I was like, well, I don't really think that if you're going to be religious and say that certain people can't have rights and, you know, certain things aren't allowed, then, you know, why be religious? But in 2013, kind of the end, I went through, I guess, a really bad time. I ended up being homeless for a brief time. I was in between apartments and I didn't have a place to stay, and I'm kind of the type of person that says, well, you know, I can handle everything. I can do it. I can do this, I can do that. I don't have to ask for help. So I didn't ask anybody if I could stay with them. I didn't, you know, try to get help for that, except for my parents. But, you know, they're like, you're in your 30s now, you need to figure out what to do. So I went through that, and I started going to the Catholic Church and the Unitarian Church. And I really like both of them. The Unitarian Church, a lot of their ideas are closer to the kind of beliefs that I have socially, in terms of equal rights and helping people and things like that. And I found more that the Catholic Church also has a lot of those things, especially with helping people. I mean, the charities that they have throughout Maryland, throughout the world, it's incredible. And as I was going to both churches, I started to have just a lot of dreams about how I was going about things. Since I was little, I've had a lot of lucid dreams, vivid dreams, things like that. And so for me, I started to realize that, you know, I can't do everything on my own all the time. I do believe that there's a higher power. And I feel like whatever your religion is, I mean, Buddhist, Islam, whatever, I mean, people find that there's something bigger than just our own individual egos, our own personalities. And for me, being part of being in the Catholic Church, I could just really feel that. I could feel that spirituality, I could feel that connection with God. And so I just decided that, you know, I was going to go through the process and become Catholic. And so it was kind of surprising to me because, you know, I was like, why would I want to join any religion? But it felt good, I guess. It felt right. And even though there's a lot of stuff with Catholicism that I don't necessarily agree with, I guess, some views that I don't agree with, there's still, I feel like, a very, very strong connection with God and with the Trinity there in the church. And a lot of those things, you're not going to agree with everything. It's like with family. You're not going to agree with your family on everything, but you still love your family. So for me, that just seemed like the kind of thing that I should do. So the process, it's called RCIA, which I was like, well, why is there a process? Like most churches you go to, you just sort of, you go and you're like, okay, I want to join, and you join. But here there's an extensive process where you go to classes and you watch videos, and you really learn a lot of different things, and you get introduced to the church and all of these things. And I find that I think that's a really good process, because a lot of times it can be easy to just join a church because you like the people and you like the atmosphere, and then you don't really know what it is that you're getting into. You don't really know what, like to the extent what the beliefs are. And here you get to learn, okay, this is what they believe, and this is what you believe, and this is where it meets, and this is, just the process of understanding what it is that you're becoming a part of. And so I find that as I go through the process, a lot of times during the week, I'll be thinking of, maybe a dilemma, a problem. I'll be thinking about, well, what is this thing in this particular scripture? How does that apply to my life, and how does that apply to the lives of people that I know? And then the next week in church, they'll be discussing the same thing. So it's kind of a weird thing. I believe a lot, and I think a lot of people do, whether you're religious or not, spiritual, in synchronicity, just these coincidences that happen in life, and how people, no matter how different, no matter what their backgrounds are, how we'll find that we're connected over time in different ways. And especially in Baltimore, you find that no matter where you go, you have some connection with somebody, anybody, and a lot of coincidences. And so I was discussing that with my sponsor. That's another thing, when you're going through the process, you have a sponsor. And she was saying that happens a lot to a lot of people, that they go through the process and they tell her that before they even thought about becoming Catholic, maybe they did a tour of the Basilica or something like that. Sometimes they would just sit there and kind of enjoy the atmosphere. And they would find that they had these coincidences happen where, maybe something happened during the week, and they would go to the church and they just felt like a stronger pull towards it. And so I find this rather interesting, because now that, you look at the world and there's so much strife in terms of religion. I mean, people of different religions and people that aren't religious at all, atheists, and things like that. Everybody's just kind of fighting over who's right and who's wrong. And a lot of times I don't know if that even really matters as much as what people feel for themselves, and being able to respect that with other people. Because when you find that you're not religious and you still feel this pull and this connection to a specific religion, what does that say about your current beliefs and then your new beliefs? We all think that when we're in a certain mindset, we're right 100%. And I don't know, I think things fluctuate and things change, and that's just a part of life. So again, going through this process, that's another thing that I'm understanding and learning. So I don't know, I thought this would be a lot longer to talk about this. And I'm trying to stretch it out, and I'm like, well, yeah, that's basically it. Yeah, because I just, I don't do a lot of nonfiction, and the nonfiction things that I had, they were kind of old. I had some things from Smile Hun, and one of them was about the Hun issue. Everybody knows, the controversy with Hun and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, I don't want to read that because, that was kind of a while ago. And then there were other things about my experiences in Baltimore, and I was like, well, those are kind of downers. I don't know, talking about some of the stuff that you see in Baltimore. So I guess what I will kind of do. Oh, there's one other thing I thought about talking about, and that is the new Pope. I just have to say, like, that's actually another reason why I was like, this Catholic thing, maybe that is for me. He's like a rock star. He's like really, really, to me, amazing. I saw recently in the news that he performed a miracle. He kissed a vial of blood that had been solidified for centuries, I believe, and it liquefied partially. And then he was in the Pope Mobile, and he got delivered a pizza. Like a guy hand-delivered him a pizza. But the thing I like so much about him is that he is very open about the fact that, it's like with race, it's gender and all that. No group is a monolith. No group all thinks the same. Women don't all think the same. Black people don't all think the same. White people don't all think the same. And within religion, people have different views, and he's rather open with saying, okay, I want to challenge this, and it's okay if you believe this, but we need to have a dialogue about this over here. And I just think that, it's just important for people to, I guess, connect and be able to have that debate, not necessarily with other people, but with themselves on what's important in their beliefs. And so that's just something that I wanted to say that I like about the Pope. So, and what I'm going to do now is just kind of open it up to questions if people have questions for me. Okay, go ahead.
So you're writing horror stories. How does religion inform your horror stories, or vice versa?
That's an interesting question. For most of my life, I haven't been religious, so it hasn't up until recently. And now I think I don't believe in kind of preaching to people. I'm not a priest. I'm not a pastor. I write the characters, and if there's something that they believe, then it goes in the story. If it's what I believe, I might try to incorporate it into the story, but if it doesn't work, then it doesn't go in. But I do, like recently, I did just put some things into something that I wrote where I was like, okay, well, I want to show this in a positive light. So I just had like a little thing with a character in there that was religious, and it was just in a positive light. So I don't know, it'll evolve over time, I guess, because this is still new for me. So, right.
Yeah, I want to know how you justify being in an organization or a church that believes that homosexuality is evil, that half the world should not control their own body, that denies scientific theory, as in the persecution of Galileo, that cooperated with the fascists in Spain and the Nazis in Germany. If you ever see the movie Amen, that talks about the fact that there was a Catholic priest that wanted to speak out against the Holocaust, and the church shut him up. How you can go along with that, especially when half the world, women's population, the Catholic Church is talking about them not having control over their own bodies, when you'd be much better suited in the Unitarian Church. Thank you.
Okay. Good question. And you know, that actually was kind of an internal debate for me, because like I said, a lot of the things with the Unitarian Church, I identify more with that. Like, I believe in equal rights. I mean, as a black woman, how could I mean, to me, that's so hypocritical to say that another group of people who are born a certain way, that they don't, you know, that there's something wrong with them. I don't believe that. So for me personally, I mean, I've never had a particular issue with homosexuality, so again, that's something that I don't necessarily agree with, and of course I don't agree with fascism. So, and a lot of the other things that you said, I feel like regardless of the fact that I don't agree with those things, the church, it's not about the people. Like when I was little, and I used to go to church all the time with my mom when I was little, she would always say, you know, when you grow up and you find a church of your own, don't judge the church based on the people. Go to the church for yourself and for your connection with God. And that's what it's about. I mean, the Unitarian Church, when I went there, and I still go there occasionally, I did talk to my sponsor about that, and they were very like open with that. Like, as long as they're not, you know, kind of creating a conflict for you or anything like that, then feel free to go to both. So I feel like if I'm going to the church, it's about my connection with God. It's about what I feel there spiritually. I don't have to agree with certain things socially, because the way I look at it is this world is going to pass away eventually. I mean, and you look at so many things that people get involved with politically. A long time ago, slavery was just, oh yeah, that's okay, that's good, that's the Christian thing to do. And now you look at it, obviously it was wrong. So, you know, I'm not someone who can say, well, you know, their beliefs make them evil or something like that, because I don't believe that. I just think that sometimes, you know, people have beliefs that you don't agree with, but it feels right to them, and maybe over time they'll change it. But I'm not getting involved in Catholicism to change anyone else's beliefs. I'm getting involved because I feel a strong connection with God there, and that's
It really doesn't
just,
answer the question, because you're going
Okay.
along to get along. You're going along, you are involving yourself.
Excuse me,
in
sir.
the system.
Yeah,
I'd like to ask
hold
a
up.
question.
Yeah, so one more question, and then we have to break for intermission.
Okay. Did anyone else have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, like, so what do you think really kind of are there any other like religious belief systems that you kind of experimented with as a child? Is this something that you kind of grew to over time, or is this like that you were kind of not really connected with anything spiritual, and then one day this kind of aha Catholicism?
No, I mean, for years, I've always considered myself spiritual, and so I've done a lot of meditation. I still do meditation. I meditate more on God and things like that, but Buddhism, definitely, that's, to me, like, it's so peaceful, but again, you know, I feel like I can kind of incorporate some of those things. And yeah, I did a lot of, just a lot. yeah. So, but as I was going to the Catholic Church, I just felt like, you know, there were a lot of things there that I felt like, okay, you know, this feels right to me. And also, you know, for my own personal spirituality, like I feel like I don't have to give up meditation, just because it's not necessarily a Catholic thing. And actually, I did some research on that because I was curious, and I found that there are some Catholic priests that actually do a lot of meditation and things like that. So, yeah. All right, thank you so much.